You know, one of my favorite parts of Spider-Man's mythos is his most constant and reoccurring antagonist. No, not some costumed supervillain or a mob boss or anything like that. Just a really loud, really mean man. His name is J. Jonah Jameson, and although he's been mayor of New York and a reporter for Fact Channel News, he's unquestionably best known as the editor-in-chief at the Daily Bugle, New York's primary source of webhead coverage. J. Jonah Jameson was introduced in the inaugural issue of Amazing Spider-Man from 1963 and serves as the series' first bad guy. To this day, he continues to stand out above the rest of Spider-Man's rogues gallery as a constant foil that Peter can't just punch away. He's a fun and interesting character who adds contrast and texture to the world of Spider-Man that has helped make the Wallcrawler's stories dynamic from the start. But where did the inspiration for Jameson come from? Well, there are two answers to this question, the official one and the one that goes much deeper, establishing the relationship between Spider-Man and Jameson as a metaphor for the comic book industry itself. This is the real origin of J. Jonah Jameson. It's hot off the presses. It was so dumb. Consider supporting NerdSync on Patreon so I can finally get pictures of Spider-Man. How are you doing, you wonderful nerds? Scott here, and last time we talked about Spidey, we focused on his debut in Amazing Fantasy number 15 with the looming censorship of the Comics Code Authority. That video will be linked up here if you want to catch up, but for now, let's just pick up where we left off. Just a few months after the Webhead's first story, he was given his very own comic series that introduced the greatest supporting character of all time. That is a fact. That is a comic book fact.
A fact I'm very proud of.
Before Peter Parker became a photographer for the Daily Bugle, he was a poor high school student, desperate to earn money and help his Aunt May. One of his early ideas was to become an entertainer on television. That might strike you as a bit of an odd choice, but you'll see why Stan Lee made this decision for the character in a bit. As Spidey performs, he becomes a bit of a cultural phenomenon, actually, in the entertainment industry, making a name for himself while garnering lots of love and attention. And then, here comes J. Jonah Jameson to critique and crusade against Spider-Man. Now we're gonna pause the story right there for a second, but if you were to ask Spider-Man co-creator Stan Lee where the inspiration for old 3J came from, he would tell you that the character was introduced almost out of practicality. He wanted Peter Parker to have an occupation that wouldn't tie him down, a freelance job that would give him time to be Spidey and earn money on his own schedule. And while he could have made Jameson a nice enough guy like Superman's Perry White, the comedy of having J. Jonah loathe Spider-Man and yet have him working under his nose as a photographer was too much for Stan to resist.
I didn't want this guy to be a nice guy.
Right.
I wanted him to hate Spider-Man because I like the irony of the fact that he has Spider-Man working for him.
Right.
And he hates Spider-Man, yet he always wants to get pictures of Spider-Man because he sells papers.
But, as Stan explains further, the exact personality of Jameson was taken from a much more personal place. You see, the Daily Bugle's editor-in-chief was based on the real-life Marvel Comics editor-in-chief. Stan, himself.
You know who J. Jonah Jameson was?
Who was it?
He was me.
Really?
He was irascible, he was bad-tempered, he was dumb, he thought he was better than he was. He was the version that so many people had of me anyway.
Right.
So, cool. Video over, I guess. It's not often that you learn authorial intent directly from the author, so perhaps we should just close the book on this expose and call Jameson a self-insert character. But I'm not so sure. I mean, if you know anything about Stan Lee, you know that it's often hard to take him at his word.
I've told this story so often it might even be true. I can't remember. But
Stan's a storyteller, often at the cost of revising history to either make himself look better or Marvel as a whole look better. I could sit here and list examples, but for the sake of time, just trust me and the many documented accounts in Marvel Comics The Untold Story when I say that Stan lies. Cool? Cool. The point is, I think J. Jonah Jameson's origins are a lot more meaty than a Stan Lee self-parody. And just like the journalists at the Daily Bugle, we can't stop at the first possible result. We have to keep digging. And I think I have a lead.
It is my opinion, without any reasonable doubt and without any reservation, that comic books are an important contributing factor in many cases of juvenile delinquency.
Meet Dr. Frederick Wortham, a sociologist and author of one of the most important books in comics history, The Seduction of the Innocent. You may now all let out your collective groans because almost everything in comics history leads back to Wortham in some capacity. If you're unfamiliar, Wortham went on a crusade against comics during the 1940s and 50s. His writings claimed that comics were dangerous for children's morals and were a contributing factor of juvenile delinquency. Seduction of the Innocent became a bestseller and caused a panic amongst parents nationwide, leading to a congressional inquiry and the formation of the Comics Code Authority. In addition to his book, he also held conferences on the psychopathology of comic books, wrote several articles about the negative effects that comics had on the American youth that appeared in popular publications. He made television and radio appearances, and, probably most notably, was a major player in the Senate subcommittee hearing on juvenile delinquency, where he explained his nuanced views of comics like this.
I think Hitler was a beginner compared to the comic book industry.
Okay, to be fair to Wortham, we are going to do a full video about him and the Senate hearing later this year to give you full context, because one, that Senate hearing is amazing, and two, doesn't seem right to just cherry pick a handful of examples simply to make him look bad. Not that he gave comic books the same courtesy, but it's fine. I'm not bitter about it. But that's precisely one of the points that links him up with J. Jonah Jameson. In their writings, they both skew information and cherry-pick details that align with their agenda. Much like Jonah's accusations against Spider-Man, Wortham had very little legitimate evidence to support all his claims. It's generally accepted that much of Wortham's research was either heavily biased or even completely fabricated. The Doctor was effectively deceiving the public and stirring outrage with misinformation. I'm sure you can see the similarities there.
Spider-Man set that fire, Parker!
But there's no proof that he did.
Proof, schmoof!
All right, run a picture of a rancid chicken. Here's a headline. Food poisoning scare sweeps city.
Some food got poisoned?
I'm a little nauseous, yeah.
And if Jonah was a stand-in for Wortham in these stories, then Spider-Man represented comics themselves. The rivalry between Jameson and Spidey can be read as a metaphor for Wortham's critiques of the comic book industry. This teenage superhero debuted during the medium's own teenage years with an outspoken adversary, a trusted authority figure who stokes fear and gains the public's trust without legitimate evidence to back it up. But that's just the start. Rereading through Amazing Spider-Man #1 with this view in mind makes the comparisons almost too obvious. Remember how Peter became a television performer? That sets him up as a source of entertainment, much like comic books, with Peter Parker simply wanting to earn a living entertaining people. And it works at first. But as his fame starts to grow, a critic steps into frame. Quote, "When I'm through with this article, Spider-Man will be run out of town." End quote. My Jameson impression is terrible. The first time we see J. Jonah Jameson, he's typing away at his desk, writing a newspaper editorial explicitly intending to damage the Web Warrior's reputation. The next day, Spider-Man learns that the public is actually buying into Jameson's article, as the Bugle's chief is now propped up at the podium delivering lectures about Spider-Man's danger to the public. Remember, this is the first time we've ever seen JJJ, and the first time that Spider-Man's ever been met with anything other than approval by the public. People are listening to him and buying into his rhetoric. A lot like Dr. Wortham's rise to public prominence, berating comic books and gaining a platform as a result. Just as Wortham's fight evolved from print to him speaking at conferences about the dangers of comic books on the impressionable minds of children, Jonah takes his own crusade off of the page, giving lectures about how the webhead is a danger to society in general and the youth in particular. Quote, "He's a bad influence to our youngsters. Children may try to imitate his fantastic feats." End quote. For my money, there's no clearer comparison between the two men than their shared concern for the impressionable youth. And in a fun twist, both men had a special affinity for calling their opponent a menace.
Who is Spider-Man? He's a criminal, that's who he is. A vigilante, a public menace.
Because of Jameson's campaign against the Wallcrawler, Spider-Man loses his job as a performer. He can no longer make money entertaining the masses. And you get it, right? That obviously echoes the many comic book publishers who are struggling to earn a living in the face of Wortham's media rampage against the medium. As the story continues, Peter has an idea, right? He would try to appeal to Jonah, get on his good side. As it so happens, Jonah's son, John,
You know, the astronaut.
was being launched into orbit, but the rocket's guidance system failed and sent him tearing through the sky on a fatal trajectory back towards Earth. Spider-Man steps in to save John's life because, yes, it is the right thing to do, but also because it might help Jonah get off his anti-spider pedestal and allow Peter to make money entertaining people again. Yet even after the web-slinger rescues the son of his most vocal opponent, Jameson still disapproves of Spider-Man's antics. Reading this metaphorically, Spidey appealing to Jameson echoes the comic book industry's attempts to appeal to Wortham and other critics. The Comics Code Authority was established to provide strict guidelines regarding what kinds of stories writers and artists were allowed to tell. And yeah, it was overly harsh, but it was a form of self-regulation that many believed would make comics look good in the eyes of the public once again. But it didn't matter.
In this comic book is a love story. A boy and girl in love. They get married, and after an offensively lurid description, illustrated, of course, of the couple's wedding night, the book shows how the bride murders her husband by chopping his head off with an axe. I think there ought to be a law against them. Tonight I'm going to show you why.
No change, no demonstrably good act could affect anything. Wortham still rallied against comics, and Jameson still rallied against Spider-Man. Wortham's crusade, combined with the censorship of the CCA, caused many comics publications to close their doors forever, unable to turn a profit, a struggle that Stan Lee experienced firsthand. As author Arian Drucker points out in an essay in Web Spinning Heroics, it's not difficult to hear Lee's experience echo into Peter Parker's frustration.
It's all his fault! 'Cause of him, I can't perform as the Spider-Man. But I can't give up. Gotta earn some money, somehow.
We have one final video to wrap up this unintentional 3-part series, so subscribe if you don't want to miss it. We'll be diving into the hidden meaning behind The Amazing Spider-Man number 50, the iconic Spider-Man No More story, so stay tuned for that. But first, I want to know what you guys think. In your opinion, was J. Jonah Jameson based off of Frederick Wortham, or was the metaphor purely coincidental and he literally was just based off of Stan Lee? I would love to know what you're thinking down in the comments below. I'll respond to some of them in the next comment response video. And now I'm actually recording this bit in the future. Ooh. I want to give a huge thanks to our patrons who support us every month over at Patreon. There's a link in the description. Here are their names. They're all lovely people, and I love them. But that's just between us. And if you want your name here, you can go to patreon.com/nerdsync and support the videos we make. It means a lot to me. And also, I want to give a huge shout out to Sal from ComicPOP for really last-minute recording that Spider-Man line, and also a bunch of other Spider-Man lines for the next video that we have coming out, hopefully later this week. We'll see how that goes. But he did a fantastic job under such short notice, so huge props to him. Please check out his channel, also linked in the description, for more comic book stuff that's uploaded on a more frequent basis than this channel. Promise I'm working on it, guys. Anyway, if you're new here, subscribe, you know how it works. If you're feeling really crazy, hit that like button. Who knows what'll happen? Probably nothing. Also, like I mentioned at the beginning of this video, here is a previous Spider-Man video we did talking about how the webhead may have secretly been introduced as a horror monster. It's a really weird concept, but I had a lot of fun with it, and you guys seem to like it too. So if you haven't seen it, go check it out. As always, my name is Scott, reminding you to read between the panels and grow smarter through comics. See ya.